So there are so many different divisive factors that are active in what's left of society today. All right, politics, religion, ethnicity, gender, all of it's been polarized far beyond what even the hatreds of old could muster up in us. All right, no matter what you end up talking about these days, there's going to be someone that has the opposite opinion. And that's always been the case, but what's different now is that every single difference of opinion is fought over like it's a matter of life or death. If someone's not on your side or you're not on their side, it might as well be cats and dogs, all right, fighting over it in the street. And one of the greatest of those polarized divisions is the generational one, right? Boomers destroyed the planet. Zoomers are lazy, helpless idiots, right? Millennials are entitled, rude pricks, and us Gen Xers just want to sit here eating popcorn, getting off on all the fighting. It's a shame, really. We've literally polarized everything to the point that it's negatively affecting our social cohesion and heavily contributing to the breakdown of civilization. But hey, what isn't contributing these days, right? So I'd like to chat about it and also put forth an idea that maybe, just maybe, a few of us critical thinkers can use to unify a little bit rather than further divide each other. So talk with me for a little while, and welcome to the Wasteland. Hey everyone, my name's Chris, and you're watching Wasteland by Wednesday. On this channel, we talk about the impending collapse of global civilization and what we can do to get ourselves ready for it. And today, we're talking just a little bit of one of my long-winded talks about divisions in our society and how we can maybe try to get past some of them. Do you ever sit and think about the post-war global legacy for, more than a few seconds at a time? What I'm talking about is the massive boom after the last World War. All right. If you don't, you should think about it, because right now in the world we're witnessing something that's historic, and it's not historic in a good way. For the first time in modern history, our civilization is on the decline. All right, and actually it's not just a decline anymore. That process has accelerated into a past tense. All right, we have declined. And that decline has led to the beginnings of our collapse. And, sure, civilizations have collapsed before. They all do. It's a natural process. But never before has it happened where all civilizations on the planet are tied into a single interconnected and interdependent whole. This modern industrial civilization of ours is actually going to leave the world worse than it was when we started, and that's kind of a new one for human history. Now, the decline that we're talking about, that started a long time ago, all right, and it's been progressing for decades. The boomer generation gets a lot of shit because they were the last to experience a fully functioning modern civilization, all right, and for everyone since then, it has been less and less functional and less stable each year. The boomers originally inherited an era of booming opportunity, all right? Rising wages and affordable homes and, stable jobs, cheap education, exploding industry, and a planet that was, it was still able to carry that capacity. Still prime and unspoiled and resource rich. Our parents and grandparents got to play the tutorial level of human civilization, right? The easy mode, the demo version. And we blame them for it, as if they really understood it at the time. Like they deliberately chose to screw everyone else over. I mean, in a way, sure, I guess they did screw us over, but on purpose? Not really. Children, when given matches and knives and no supervision, they shouldn't really be held responsible for the damage they cause. The collapse of complex societies is a natural process, and the boomers just got to mindlessly enjoy the last bits of the good stuff, right? All that sweet sugary milk at the bottom of the cereal bowl after all the Lucky Charms are gone. And now, after all that, now we're all sitting around staring at the empty bowl that they tossed on the table, and it doesn't look like it's going to get refilled anytime soon. Though in all fairness, the boomers fully expected it to be just as full for us as it was for them. But nope. Lucky Charms aren't on the menu for us. In fact, the current state of affairs makes our menu read more like a disaster checklist, right? So, housing crisis, check. People once bought homes for the price of a wooden tough shed, but now starter homes are valued like gold bars with doors, and more of them are bought up by corporations so that they can rent them to us and continue to milk our lives for their own sustenance. Geopolitical crisis, also check. Wars are spreading as the hegemonic power of the West is challenged by the growing might of an East that's finally united, and the lines are being drawn for a third world war that somehow people don't see coming. Here's a divisive one. Climate crisis. Check. Global civilization jumped into the idea of churning resources into dollars with both feet, all right? And we spent decades acting like the earth was an unlimited use coupon, all right? But now that coupon's expired, and we're left with so many corporate and industrial mouths to feed that another great war over resources is pretty much an inevitability at this point. Broken economy? Also check. Wages flatlined while everything else kind of skyrocketed and inflation was allowed to run rampant. The futures of younger generations were kind of sacrificed on the altar of this quarter's earnings reports, all right? Those who used the industrial boom to get rich and powerful pulled that ladder up behind them, broke it over their knee, and then they act puzzled why people can't climb higher anymore. Resource crisis? Well, we can check that off too. Every week it seems like something else is in short supply, and at this moment right now, it's RAM memory for computers. Go ahead and Google that one. The AI out there is eating up all the good stuff, from water and power, and now even our entertainment electronics. And meanwhile, all the big dog nations are making moves to secure sources of everything from cropland to cobalt, all right, setting up for that inevitable resource war that we talked about. Social welfare crisis. Check that one. Definitely check that box. Healthcare and education that used to be general services, they've been turned into luxury items. All right, these two most basic needs of all people were turned into commodities, and when it comes to that, what you can't afford, you can't have. Those have both been consolidated under corporate interests, packaged, and then sold at ever-increasing prices. All right, their original purposes modified to be more about generating revenue than about ensuring people's health, wellness, and education, all right? Once again, the rich of today got it cheap in their day, but us, we're lucky if we can get it at an adjustable interest rate. Social crisis. Yeah, check that box. Back in the days of plenty, we had a society of mostly united people. Sure, we had some differences politically and culturally and religious stuff and whatever, but those were just things that we had to compromise on to get things done. We didn't fight over every little tiny thing. We didn't have to completely agree with each other on 100% of the issues in order to get along. But again, our newly rich forebears knew that that's something that threatened their dominance. And so they built a whole political era on culture wars, resentment, and denial. And now everyone is at each other's throats over things that were barely even issues 50 years ago. Social cohesion has been shattered like a glass thrown on the floor, and now we're expected to clean it up like we're interns on our first day at work. I won't spend all day on the ridiculous checklist, all right? These are just a few very simplified crises of the many that make up our overall polycrisis that has led to our collapse, all right? This is what our growth cost, all right? Our rapid growth. This is what happens when people and systems are given the freedom and ability to act for unrestrained self-interest without any responsibility or accountability to the future. In essence, this is what you get when human nature is able to spread way beyond what it could in medieval times, all right? Or even just the frontier days. Humans have always sought to dominate everything around them, all right? That's just our nature. But up until the Industrial Revolution, we simply weren't able to reach far enough to wreck things for the whole planet, all right? We could ruin an area. We could definitely ruin a nation for sure, even destroy an entire region sometimes, but we had no way to affect the entire globe and the full scope of all humanity. That was just beyond us. And it was beyond us for a good reason. You know, for the same reason that you don't let a child play with matches in a fireworks factory, all right? We made the mistake of allowing humans to rise far enough that they could affect things globally, and look what's been done. And these rich, powerful elites that drive most of this, these old families and dynasties, they still talk like they're the responsible ones, all right? Like they did nothing wrong and the world just randomly happened to fall apart right after they tried controlling every major societal, ecological, and technological function for decades. What an incredible coincidence that was. So, you want a division that might actually make a little bit of sense? It's haves versus have-nots. You know, it's the controlling versus the controlled. It is, in our twisted human form, the age-old natural division that has always existed for all living things, all right? It's the predator-prey relationship. There are predators within the human species, and there are prey. We may like to believe that civilization somehow changed us, but I'm afraid that things don't quite work that quickly, all right? Civilization, for us individually, it's just conditioning, all right? It's training, domestication, whatever you want to call it. It's a leash or a cage that we live with, or at least we did. The Industrial Revolution created the environment for a new change, all right? And technology gave us the tools to escape those cages, to slip our leashes, right? Some of us anyway. And those who first found those tools kept that little play real close to the vest. You know, they kept the majority of us still locked in our cages of laws and customs and societal obedience, all right? They kept us prey. And, you know, make no mistake, that's exactly what we are to those pulling the strings at the top. You know, we're prey. Our society is literally like their own little game preserve, okay? Their own stocked fishing pond, and they feed on us while we just try to go about the business of living, you know, and believing that we're all in the same world. But we're not. We're in a totally different world from the world that those elites live in, all right? Animals born on a farm, they only know the farm. Anyway, my point is that it's not the fault of the boomer generation exactly, all right? They just happened to be the ones that were there, all right? They were the ones that were alive when the tools became available, all right? And some of them grabbed those tools and ran with them. Individual boomers, they're not personally to blame. But as a collective era and as a mindset, they gave rise to the kinds of thoughts and ideas that allowed too few to control too much, all right? And that created the environment for the globalization that now dooms all of us to suffer for the failure of any one of us, all right? And by that, I mean, you know, when one major nation falls, the rest are going to drop in quick succession because, like it or not, we are all one interdependent civilization now. These few predatory people who have risen to hold the world in the palms of their hands, all right? They're a political and economic force that dominates all societal policy, culture, and power, all right? They've done so for a very long time now. But their time is coming to a close. What's messed up is that we get to pay for their mistakes. They fucked around for sure, but it's left for us to find out. Yeah, the post-war legacy is unmistakable. Yeah, some of those who came before us were kind of handed the keys to the nicest house in the neighborhood, you know. Just handed over to them by a civilization coasting on easy mode, where anyone could get crazy rich at the drop of a hat. And what did they do? Well, they moved in. They threw a decades-long party and overloaded the electrical system. They drained the mortgage of all equity and shattered the windows and ignored the leaking roof. And, you know, they even stripped the copper on the way out, and then they abandoned the place to go spend their last years golfing. They just kind of tossed the keys on the ground and said, all right, it's your place now. Then they wonder why no one can take care of it. And by the way, the mortgage is now triple what it used to be. The plumbing and electrical no longer work right. The foundations are crumbling, and Finally, and probably the biggest issue of all, is that it's the only house that's left. All of us, this entire globe, we're all living in the same house. And that's the rub. People used to exist in a world of many different and separate civilizations, right? There was little connection and almost no dependence of one on the other, all right? One civilization could collapse, even a huge one, a great one like the Roman Empire, but it still wouldn't take down the world with it, all right? There used to be so many houses, all of them independently off-grid, but now all of us, all of humanity lives in the same run-down, rickety old house, and there's no other homes to find. When this one collapses, as it's already in the process of doing, that's a wrap. All right, not just for a nation or even a region, it's the end of civilization globally. A full reset and a wipe, an update that erases all of your saved game progress. It's unprecedented, it's historic, and it's maddening because it could have been prevented simply by not biting off more than we needed to chew at the time. And I know, every civilization before has struggled, right? Every generation of humanity has made mistakes, for sure, and societies have collapsed before, absolutely. But on the arc of history, the world generally improved, all right? Even as one civilization came tumbling down, there was another one rising right alongside to take up the mantle of human progress. And that was made possible by the fact that human civilizations, they were separate. They were each unique and independent. Industrial civilization and the technological boom of the post-war era broke that pattern. The people of those early days, they're the ones that inherited a rising world, a thriving one. But now they're leaving behind a sinking, dying one. They had their cake and they ate it too. And now no one else gets cake from here on out. And the rest of us are just supposed to, smile and pretend that this wasn't the most preventable mess imaginable. One day, very soon, there will be no living members of those older generations left. Today they still hold power, and they still use it to keep kicking the can down the road just long enough to see them live out their remaining lives in opulence and power, but soon they won't be able to, all right? Soon the house of cards will tumble down, but they'll be gone, and they won't have to bear they won't have to bear what they've created for the rest of humanity. And when that day comes, which is coming sooner than not, people are going to look around. They're going to take in the post-collapse world that they inherited, and they're going to have a moment, all right? A heavy, stunned moment where they say, damn, so this is what we're left with. That's collapse. And that's why you can't really talk to your parents and your grandparents about it, not without them poo-pooing the whole thing away as irrelevant. And that's because for them it is irrelevant. They don't care. They ate the cake. It was delightful. They don't want any of that gross stuff that you're serving up. This is also why nothing will change, okay? Nothing will be done, and no one will even take steps to mitigate the smallest little bit of what's coming, all right? Because to do that would endanger those last few years of plenty for the power that be, and that just won't do. So you shouldn't act puzzled when government doesn't do something to help people. All right, don't act surprised when all your bills go up, but your wages go down and your money ends up worth less. All right, don't be confused about why wars are being started and economies are being plundered and everything in life just gets shittier, more expensive, and in short supply. This is collapse. It's here. All right, it isn't hypothetical anymore. It isn't something bad that'll happen someday, somewhere, because, someday is now. It's already happening. And those wealthy old elites, they know what's up, and that's why they keep us at each other's throats, fighting and squabbling amongst ourselves, all right? And at the same time, they give us this constant false hopium that things will be okay, all right? That everything will just be fine if we just keep going to work and mowing the lawn and paying our taxes and doing all the other things that actually, if you look at it, haven't worked for decades now. But we keep doing it. Meanwhile, they know, They know that civilization is dying, and in these last years, they're just sitting there like ticks, right? They're sucking the last drops of warm blood from the cooling corpse that was our world. We don't even know it's dead yet, you know? Some of us can see it, others can feel that something is off, but most of us, most regular people, general people, they're still enthralled by the societal construct being held up by those powers that be to keep things moving. All right. We are, in essence, we're kind of like the people on the Titanic. All right. There's been an event, bad things are about to happen, but we're not aware of it because we're not in control of the situation. Just like passengers on a boat. We noticed something happening, but and the difference in our case is that the captain and crew, they do know what's happening. They're in control, but they're not telling us anything about it. All right. The hull's already breached and the water's rushing in, but they're just letting us fritter away the time while secretly they're preparing the lifeboats only for themselves. All right. They're keeping the ship moving and stable just long enough to take care of themselves. And, when the inevitable end comes, the rest of us are fish food and they don't care. Collapse is inevitable. It always has been. That is, it's simply a historical fact. All right. But what's different this time is that we're all in that same boat. Okay. There won't be any other boats to come pluck us out of the water. Even the greatest collapse of all, when the Roman Empire fell, it didn't take the entire world with it. But when a global civilization fails, however, the whole thing goes down the drain. And that's why prepping is so important. All right. Prepping is your lifeboat. All right. And the better you prep, the more work you put into it, the better your lifeboat's going to be. The better it can keep you alive and protect you against the cold and the elements and everything else. And something else we have to do is that we can't let them drive us apart any more than they already have. All right. There are religious preppers and atheist preppers, left-leaning ones and right-leaning ones, white, black, brown, all that. All right. But we can't let the bullshit of all that be a wedge that drives between us and makes us hate each other. All right. We need to be helping each other. All right. We need to let go of that garbage. All right. No one's going to care. No one's going to care who you voted for back in 2020, 10 or 15 years down the road when we're all sitting around making squirrel stew around the campfire somewhere. No one's going to care, when you introduce yourself, no one's going to care what your skin color is. They're just going to want to make sure that you're not bringing tuberculosis into camp. And they damn sure won't care what, generation you're from. They're just hoping know a little something about woodworking or animal husbandry or something useful. Prepping is about practicality, all right? And none of that stuff is practical. Us preppers that are alive today, there's boomers and Gen X like myself, there's millennials, and there's even some Zoomers and Gen Alpha in there, all right? But we need to stop looking at each other as separate, all right? We are all one in a very unique way. All right, because those of us here now, we're going to see the collapse. Right now, all of you who have listened to this far in this video, you're all together in that. All right, we are together right now across the entire world. We're all right here, right now, together. You can talk to each other in the comments section of this video. You can talk to me. God knows I like to talk. In fact, one of my viewers recently dubbed me. He gave me the name Long-Winded Wednesday, which I can't really object to it. But yeah, right now, all of us, young and old alike, we're a single generation, all right? We are, in effect, the last generation of modern civilization. The people that are alive today, regardless of age, it's all one generation. We are the collapse generation, and we are Legion. But we do need to start acting like it, all right? We need to stop hoping that things will get better despite all the evidence being to the contrary. We need to stop trusting in the old institutions that no longer serve our best interests, right? We need to stop pretending that everything's going to be okay and that, we can make it if we just work hard and follow the rules and do what our grandparents did. What worked for them no longer works for us. Okay, what they had, we're never going to see. And what they spent is gone. We're stuck with the bill. So I want all of you to take a look away for a moment, okay? Stop paying attention to all the societal drivel and the misdirection of bread and circuses for just a little bit, all right? And think about what this whole collapse means. Think about what it means if it's real, all right? Don't try to figure it out. Don't try and prove the idea of collapse or disprove it or come up with ways that it might be fixed or postponed or any of that. Just take some time to think about what it means if it's true. What it means if the world as you know it was going to be gone in just a few years. And if you really do that, if you really form the mental picture of what that looks like and what it means, you'll become even more aware of how important it is to be prepared for it. And that's what I want from you. I want you to be aware of collapse, and I want you to be prepared for it. Okay, I want us to be prepared for it. For a little while longer, we all still have the same tools of technology. We can join and communicate and share with each other. So let's use that. Let's all try to let go of some of those divisions and differences of opinion. All right, let's see if we can't all help each other just a little tiny bit, just to get ready for this thing we call collapse. A unified collapse generation, right? That's my idea. Gen C. You really want to stick it to those who screwed us over? Be better than they were. That's how it's done. All right. Thanks for coming to my little prepper talk today. Stay safe and stay ready. It's a wasteland out there.